The bright lights of the command deck reflected off Commander Alan Peters' forehead as he wiped away beads of sweat. The earthbound horizon had just completed its final approach to the Vexari homeworld after a journey of nearly 7 months. "Dad, are we there yet?" Lily tugged at his uniform sleeve, her 8-year-old eyes wide with excitement. Alan smiled down at his daughter. "Yes, sweetheart. Remember what we talked about. Best behavior today." Bringing children on first contact missions was still controversial, but Earth's diplomats believed showing family units would help alien species understand humans better. Lily was one of 3 children chosen for this historic moment. "Commander, the Vexari delegation is ready to receive us," said Susan Miller, straightening her formal diplomatic uniform. "Their transmission indicates they prepared some kind of welcome ceremony." Alan nodded. "Everyone remember your training. Follow protocols and stay alert." He knelt to look Lily in the eyes. "Stay close to me, okay?" The landing party assembled in the transport bay. 6 diplomats, 4 security officers, 3 scientists, and 1 child who couldn't stop bouncing on her toes. The air shimmered as they materialized on the surface of the alien world. The Vexari were tall, reptilian beings with scales that shifted colors like oil on water. Their delegation stood in perfect formation, facing the humans with unblinking yellow eyes. One Vexari stepped forward, skin flashing blue patterns. "Welcome, humans of Earth. I am Tazarek, appointed speaker." The translation device worked perfectly, converting the series of clicks and hisses into English. "We have observed your signals for many years. Today we become known to each other." The humans bowed slightly as they had practiced. Alan noticed how Lily watched the aliens with fascination rather than fear. The Vexari led them to a grand hall with high ceilings and walls covered in strange symbols. A long table held various objects and containers that the humans assumed was food. "We share sustenance as symbol of trust," Tazarek explained. "Please, join in our welcome feast." The human delegation hesitated, remembering their briefings on alien biology. Dr. Frank Collins quickly scanned the offerings with his handheld device. "Most items appear compatible with human digestion," he whispered. "Nothing immediately toxic detected." As the adults carefully navigated the diplomatic conversations, Lily grew bored. She wandered toward the table, staying within sight of her father, but curious about the colorful items displayed. One particular item caught her eye. A small, glowing purple fruit that seemed to pulse with its own light. None of the adults noticed when she reached for it, fascinated by its glow. It tasted sweet and tangy, like nothing on Earth. The reaction was immediate. A Vexari elder at the far end of the hall let out a piercing shriek. Every alien in the room froze, their scales flashing bright red patterns. "What has happened?" Susan asked, stepping forward. The Vexari leader, Tazarek, pointed a clawed finger at Lily, who stood confused with purple juice still on her lips. "The small human has consumed the Graltak," he said, voice trembling with what the translation matrix identified as horror. "The sacred food of our highest religious order. This is forbidden to all but the chosen priests." Alan rushed to his daughter's side. "It was a mistake. She's just a child." An older Vexari pushed through the crowd, wearing elaborate ceremonial garments. When he spoke, his voice made the translation device crackle with intensity. "I am Krazith, head elder. By our most ancient laws, consumption of sacred Graltak by outsiders demands blood payment." His yellow eyes fixed on Lily. "The small one must face ritual judgment at tonight's dual moons." The human security team moved protectively toward Lily, hands hovering near their weapons. Alan's face went pale, but he kept his voice steady. "There must be another way to resolve this. We came in peace. Our laws predate our civilization," Krazith said without emotion. "They cannot be changed, even for visitors from the stars." As the room erupted in tense voices and translation errors, Alan held Lily close, her small body trembling as she finally realized something was very wrong. First contact had just gone terribly wrong. The next 3 hours were the most tense in Susan Miller's diplomatic career. The human delegation had been moved to a circular chamber with tall windows that showed the twin moons of the Vexari world slowly rising in the purple sky. "This is completely unacceptable," Susan said, facing the 7 members of the Vexari High Council. "We cannot allow a child to be punished for a cultural misunderstanding." Alan sat with Lily in the corner of the room. The girl had stopped crying but remained silent, understanding now the seriousness of what had happened. "Dad, I'm sorry," Lily whispered. Alan hugged her tight. "It's not your fault, sweetie. We'll fix this." The head of the Vexari Council, Krasith, raised a clawed hand for silence. His scales had settled into a dark blue pattern that the humans had learned indicated formal authority. "Our laws are older than our space travel," Krasith said. "The growltac fruit is grown in soil mixed with the ashes of our ancestors. When consumed, it connects us to those who came before. For an outsider to eat it breaks the sacred chain of our people." Dr. Frank Collins stepped forward with his datapad. "Our scans show no harmful effects on the child. Perhaps there's a ritual cleansing that cold." "Your science is not relevant here," another council member interrupted. "This is a matter of spiritual law." Alan watched as Susan tried every diplomatic approach she knew. Offers of trade, technology, and formal apologies were all refused with the same answer: their law could not be changed. "Commander Peters," a voice spoke in Alan's earpiece. It was Captain Greg Foster from the ship still in orbit. "We've reviewed our options. A rescue operation would result in casualties on both sides and destroy any chance of peace with the Vexari. Earth Command is advising continued diplomatic efforts." Alan's mind raced. During the mission preparation, he had studied Vexari culture extensively. There was something, a concept he had read about. He stood up suddenly. "I wish to address the council directly." Susan gave him a worried look, but nodded. Ellen walked to the center of the chamber, leaving Lily with Donna Wright, the communications officer who had been kind to her during the voyage. "Honorable Council," Alan began, choosing his words carefully. "I have been reviewing what I know of your ancient traditions. Is it true that your laws allow for the concept of drevtake, the substitution of judgment?" The council members exchanged surprised glances. Krasith's scales flickered with rapid color changes. "You know of this old custom?" Krasith asked, his voice lower than before. "I do," Alan said firmly. "And I formally invoke it now." He straightened his back and spoke the words he had memorized from the cultural database. "Because my daughter ate your food, I offer myself tonight." The room fell into complete silence. The human delegation looked confused, but the Vexari council members were perfectly still, their scales now pulsing with slow patterns of yellow and green. "Commander, what are you doing?" Susan whispered urgently. Alan didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on Krasith. After a long moment, the Vexari elder spoke. "The human understands our ways better than expected. The right of substitution is indeed ancient law." He stood up. "Commander Alan Peters, do you fully understand what you propose? You would take the place of the child in our ritual of judgment." "I do," Alan said without hesitation. "Dad, no." Lily broke free from Donna and ran to her father, grabbing his hand. "What does that mean? What are you doing?" Alan knelt down to look into his daughter's eyes. "It's going to be okay, Lily. I'm just going to help the Vexari understand us better." Krasith made a gesture, and 2 Vexari guards approached. "The council will consider this offer of substitution. Until then, Commander Peters will be taken to the Chamber of Reflection to prepare. The child will remain with your people." As the guards led Alan away, he looked back at his daughter one last time. Susan was already on her communication device, urgently contacting the ship. The diplomatic crisis had just become a test of how far one human would go to save his child. The Chamber of Reflection was a small room with walls made of some kind of crystal that changed colors slowly. Alan sat on a simple bench, watching the walls shift from deep blue to purple and back again. He had been there for hours. A door slid open, and a Vexari he hadn't seen before entered. This one was smaller than the others, with scales and patterns of green and gold. "I am Critel," the Vexari said. "I will be your evaluator." Alan stood up. "What exactly am I being evaluated for?" Critel tilted his head in a way that seemed curious. "You have invoked substitution, but we must determine if you truly understand what the child did. Understanding is required before judgment." "I'm ready," Alan said firmly. "First test," Critel announced. "Physical endurance." Without warning, the temperature in the room dropped until Alan could see his breath. He wrapped his arms around himself, trying to control his shivering. "Vexari children learn to control body temperature," Critel explained. "This teaches discipline of the physical form." Alan nodded, his teeth chattering. On Earth, some cultures have similar practices. The temperature rose suddenly, becoming uncomfortably hot. Alan felt sweat break out all over his body, but he remained standing, his eyes fixed on Critel. After 20 minutes of shifting between extreme temperatures, the room returned to normal. "Impressive adaptation," Critel noted. "Now, mental evaluation." A section of the wall lit up with strange symbols that changed rapidly. "Observe the patterns," Critel instructed. "Tell me what you see." Alan focused hard on the shifting symbols. They made no sense at first, but slowly he began to notice repetitions and variations. "It's a language," he said finally, "but not just words. It's showing relationships, hierarchies." Critel's scales flickered with what might have been surprise. "Explain." "These symbols show who is connected to whom," Alan continued. "Like a family tree, but more complex. It shows who has authority over others." "Correct," Critel said. "You perceive the essence of our social structure." Suddenly, Alan's communication device made a soft sound. He had forgotten they hadn't taken it from him. "Commander," Donna Wright's voice came through quietly. "Can you hear me?" "Yes," Alan whispered when Critel turned away briefly. "We're monitoring you," Donna said quickly. "The Vexari are testing if you understand their values. Their society is built on knowing your place in the hierarchy. The food Laylee ate is meant only for those at the top." "Thanks," Alan murmured before silencing the device. Critel turned back. "Final test. Ethical understanding." The Vexari produced a small container holding what looked like the same purple fruit Laylee had eaten. "If I offered this to you now, what would you do?" Critel asked. Alan looked at the fruit carefully. "I would refuse it," he said. "I haven't earned the right to connect with your ancestors." Critel's scales rippled with changing colors. "And what if I told you eating it would save you from punishment?" "I would still refuse," Alan said without hesitation. "Taking shortcuts to avoid consequences isn't honorable. That's why I offered myself instead of looking for excuses for my daughter." Critel was silent for a long moment. Many species we have encountered would not understand this. They see only rules to be followed or broken based on convenience. Alan smiled slightly. "Humans are complicated. We break rules sometimes, but we also understand sacrifice. Parents protecting their children is one of our deepest values. Perhaps our species have more in common than first appeared," Critel said, his voice softer than before. "You have passed the preliminary trials, Commander Peters. But the Council must still decide your fate." As Critel left, Alan sat back down on the bench. The communication device buzzed again. "Commander," Donna's voice was urgent. "We've discovered something important about these Vexari. Something they're hiding from us." Alan leaned forward. "I'm listening." "Commander, our scientists have been analyzing the data from the medical scans." Donna's voice came through the small device. "The Vexari are dying." Alan frowned. "What do you mean?" "Dr. Collins found evidence of genetic degradation in every Vexari scan. Their DNA, or whatever they have that's similar, is breaking down. They're losing their ability to reproduce." Alan thought about this new information. And how does this connect to the sacred food? That's the key, Donna explained quickly. The fruit contains compounds that temporarily halt the degradation. That's why it's so valuable to them. It's literally keeping their species alive. And here's the strange part. When we analyzed Lily's readings after she ate it, there was a reaction we didn't expect. A sound in the corridor forced Alan to whisper, "Someone's coming. Tell me quickly." Her human enzymes altered the compounds in the fruit, making them more stable. Dr. Collins thinks human biology might hold the key to saving their species. The door slid open before Alan could respond. This time, it was not Criddle, but an older Vexari with faded scales and slow movements. Alan recognized him as one of the council members. "I am Vestra," the Vexari said. "I have come without the council's knowledge." Alan stood up cautiously. "Why?" Vestra's scales rippled with what Alan now recognized as anxiety. "Criddle reported that you passed the trials with unexpected insight. I believe you might understand our situation. Your species is dying," Alan said directly. Vestra's eyes widened. "How do you know this?" "We're scientists too," Alan explained. "We detected the genetic degradation in your people. The sacred fruit helps slow it down, doesn't it?" Vestra moved closer, speaking softly. "For generations, we have kept this secret from other species. We feared being seen as weak. The Graltak fruit preserves us, but each generation, it becomes less effective." He paused. "When your child consumed it, our monitors detected something unusual. A chemical reaction between human enzymes and the fruit compounds." Alan finished. "Yes," Vestra confirmed. "But Krezith and the traditionalists refuse to consider that aliens might save us. They would rather maintain our laws and traditions, even if it means our extinction." Alan understood the situation more clearly now. "So the council is divided." "Yes, some of us believe we must adapt to survive. Others think our traditions must never change, even if it means our end." Suddenly, the door slid open again. Criddle entered, scales flashing with alarm patterns. "Vestra, you should not be here," Criddle said urgently. "Krezith has called for immediate judgment. The ritual is being prepared now." Vestra turned to Alan. "I am sorry. I had hoped to convince more council members before this moment arrived." Alan's heart raced. What happens in this ritual? Criddle and Vestra exchanged looks. Criddle spoke first. "Traditionally, the offender's life essence is extracted while they still live, then mixed with the soil where the Graltak trees grow." "You mean my execution?" Alan said flatly. "Yes," Vestra admitted, "but some of us disagree with this path. Your species might hold the key to our survival." Alan's communication device buzzed again. It was Susan Miller this time. "Commander, we've contacted Earth Command. They're ordering us to withdraw immediately, with or without you. They won't risk war over this." Criddle's head tilted. "Your people would leave you. They have to think of the bigger picture," Alan explained. "Just like your council does." Criddle seemed to consider this. "You understand duty to the many. This is unexpected wisdom." Vestra moved toward the door. "I must return to the council. But remember, Commander, not all Vexari want your death." As they left, Alan stared at the changing colors of the crystal walls. An idea was forming in his mind, a desperate gamble that might save his life and change the future of two species. He pressed his communication device. "Dr. Collins, I need you to prepare something for me. It might be our only chance." The ritual chamber was circular with a high domed ceiling. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, and in the center stood a stone platform surrounded by 7 tall crystals. The entire Vexari Council was present, along with several religious figures wearing elaborate decorations on their scales. Alan was led into the chamber by 2 guards. He wore only a simple white garment provided to him. The human delegation stood to one side, their faces showing various degrees of fear and concern. Lily was not present. Susan had made sure she remained on the ship. "The ritual of judgment will now begin," Krozith announced, his voice echoing in the chamber. "The outsider has accepted substitution for the young one who violated our most sacred law." Dr. Frank Collins moved slightly closer to Ellen and whispered, "I've prepared what you asked for. Helen has it ready." Ellen nodded almost imperceptibly. Krozith approached Ellen. "Before judgment is carried out, the accused may speak final words." Ellen took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Honorable Council, I have learned much about your people during my time here. I understand now the importance of your traditions and the value you place on your connection to ancestors." The Vexeri listened silently. "But I also learned something else," Ellen continued. "Your species faces a grave threat, one that your sacred fruit can only delay, not prevent." Murmurs spread through the Vexari. Krozith's scales flashed angry patterns. "This is not the place for such talk," the elder said sharply. "I believe it is exactly the place," Ellen countered, "because I wish to offer more than my life today. I offer a chance for your entire species to survive." Complete silence fell over the chamber. Even the skeptical council members seemed interested. Ellen turned to Dr. Helen Reyes, who stepped forward with a small container. "Our scientists have analyzed what happened when my daughter consumed your sacred food," Ellen explained. "Her human biology interacted with the compounds in ways yours cannot. We believe human stem cells, properly modified with Vexeri genetic material, could potentially reverse the degradation affecting your people." Vestra moved forward. "Is this possible?" "Theoretically, yes," Helen said. "We would need time and cooperation, but initial tests are promising." Krozith's scales turned a dark red. "This is blasphemy. Our sacred traditions cannot be mixed with alien biology, even if it means the end of your entire species," Ellen asked directly. The chamber erupted in arguments among the Vexeri. Ellen could see clear divisions forming, those who seemed open to the idea and those who were violently opposed. A younger Vexari suddenly pushed to the front. "I stand with the human. My clutched siblings' eggs failed to develop last season, like so many others. Will we cling to tradition while our nurseries remain empty?" More voices joined, both supporting and opposing. The unified front of the Vexari was breaking apart. In the chaos, Krozith raised a ceremonial blade. "The ritual must be completed. Our ancestors demand it." He lunged toward Ellen, but Crittle stepped between them. "No, there must be discussion." The chamber descended into something close to a brawl. Vexari pushed against each other while the human delegation backed toward the walls. "This is our chance," Susan whispered urgently to Alan. "We can escape in the confusion." Alan shook his head. "No, running would destroy any trust we've built. This is bigger than just me now." A loud sound like a bell rang through the chamber, bringing temporary quiet. An extremely old Vexari that Alan hadn't seen before hobbled to the center of the room. "I am Movex, eldest of our kind," the ancient Vexari announced. "And I have seen enough. Bring the human and the human healers to the sacred grove. We will test their claims." Krozith looked shocked. "But the ritual can wait," Movex said firmly. "If we face extinction, we must explore all paths. The human has offered not just his life, but a gift far greater, hope. I wish to see if this hope has substance." As Alan was led from the chamber, following the ancient Vexari, he caught Susan's eye and nodded. The gamble might just work. The sacred grove was unlike anything Alan had ever seen. Tall, twisted trees with purple leaves grew in perfect circles. Their trunks glowed faintly in the dim light of the setting twin moons. In the center of the grove stood a small building that looked like a laboratory. "Our ancestors were not just religious figures," Movex explained as they walked. "They were scientists who understood the connection between all living things." Before they could reach the building, a loud alarm sounded throughout the grove. Vexari guards rushed in from all directions. "The traditionalists are taking action," Crittle said urgently. Krozith has declared this meeting unauthorized. Helen looked back to see Susan and the human delegation running toward them. Paul Garcia, the security chief, reached them first. "Commander, we have a situation," Paul reported breathlessly. "Krozith has ordered his followers to take control of all transportation hubs. They're preventing anyone from leaving the planet and have sent ships to intercept our vessel in orbit." Susan caught up to them. "Earth Command is demanding we extract immediately. They've authorized defensive measures." Alan's heart sank. This was exactly what he had hoped to avoid, a military confrontation between humans and Vexari. "We need to reach the laboratory," Movex insisted. "If we can prove the human theory works, it might stop this madness." Suddenly, the trees around them lit up with weapon fire. A group of Krozith's guards had found them and were shooting to kill. "Get down," Paul shouted, pushing Alan and the Vexari elders toward cover behind a large tree trunk. Paul and his security team returned fire, using stun settings only. "We don't want to hurt anyone if we can avoid it," he explained when Movex looked surprised at their restraint. Alan tapped his communication device. "Lieutenant Catherine Jones, are you monitoring?" "Yes, Commander," came the quick reply. "Can you access the Vexari communication network from orbit?" "Already working on it, sir. Their security is complex, but follows patterns we've seen before." Alan nodded. "Good. Don't disable their weapons. Just interfere with their targeting systems. Make it hard for them to hit anything." Within minutes, the Vexari guards' weapons began to malfunction, their shots going wide of any targets. The confusion gave the human Vexari group enough time to reach the laboratory building. Inside, Dr. Helen Reyes quickly set up her equipment alongside the Vexari technology. "This is amazing," she said, examining the ancient devices. Their ancestors understood genetic engineering at a level we're only beginning to grasp. "Can you make your solution work with their equipment?" Alan asked. Helen nodded. "I think so. The basic principles are similar, just applied differently." While Helen worked with Vestra and the other progressive Vexari, Alan returned to the entrance where Paul and his team were holding off Krozith's forces. "The fighting has spread throughout the city," Susan reported grimly. "The progressive Vexari are protecting the communication centers, but they're outnumbered." Alan made a decision. "Catherine, can you broadcast a message to all Vexari communication devices?" "Yes, Commander." "The channel is open." Alan took a deep breath and began speaking. His words were translated and sent to every Vexari on the planet. "People of Vexar, this is Commander Alan Peters of Earth. I came to your world in peace, and despite our misunderstandings, I still believe peace is possible between us. Right now, your people are fighting each other because of us, because my daughter made a mistake, and because I offered a solution that challenges your traditions." He paused, watching as even the fighting Vexari seemed to pause to listen. "We humans understand the importance of tradition, but we also understand adaptation. Your ancestors were wise enough to balance both. They were scientists as well as spiritual leaders. Would they want you to cling to traditions at the cost of your entire species' survival?" As he spoke, Helen emerged from the lab with an excited expression on her face. "It works," she whispered to Alan. "The combined treatment works." Alan smiled and continued his broadcast with renewed hope. "We can save each other through cooperation, not conflict. The choice is yours." 6 months had passed since the events on the Vexari homeworld. Commander Alan Peters stood in a large hall decorated with both human and Vexari symbols, watching as representatives from both species signed documents at a long table. "The Earth-Vexari Alliance is now official," Susan Miller said with a smile. "Not bad for a first contact that almost ended in execution." Alan nodded. Sometimes the worst beginnings lead to the best outcomes. Across the room, Dr. Helen Reyes was showing her medical data to a group of Vexari scientists. The treatment developed from human stem cells had been successfully tested on 50 Vexari volunteers. The results were better than anyone had hoped. The genetic degradation has been reversed in all test subjects, Helen explained, and the effects appear permanent, not temporary like the fruit treatment. Vestra, now the head of the Vexari Council after the peaceful transition of power, approached Alan. "My people owe you a great debt, Commander Peters. We had resigned ourselves to a slow extinction. Now, our nurseries are full of healthy eggs for the first time in generations, and we've gained access to technology and knowledge that would have taken us centuries to develop on our own," Alan replied. "I'd say both our species benefit from this alliance." Crittol joined them, his scales displaying patterns of formal respect. "We have much to learn from humans about adaptation. Some of our traditions have changed, but our core values remain." "What happened to Krasith?" Alan asked. He hadn't seen the former elder since returning to the Vexari world. "He has joined a monastery in the northern mountains," Crittol explained. "He still believes we have strayed from the true path, but he has accepted the will of the majority." A small voice called out, "Dad." Alan turned to see Lily running toward him, followed by 3 young Vexari who moved with the same energetic bounces. Since the alliance, a cultural exchange program had been established, with children from both species learning about each other's worlds. "The Vexari kids showed me how to make the trees glow," Lily said excitedly. "We touched the bark in special patterns, and the whole trunk lit up." One of the young Vexari stepped forward shyly. "We want to show Small who changed everything our sacred garden next." Alan smiled at the title the Vexari had given his daughter. What had begun as a diplomatic disaster had become a term of honor. Mavex, the ancient Vexari who had helped them in the sacred grove, approached slowly with the help of a walking stick. "The new diplomatic protocol has been approved," he announced. "All future contact missions will include detailed cultural education and clear rules about food consumption." Susan laughed. "We're calling it the Lily Protocol. Earth has adopted it for all first contact missions going forward." Alan watched as his daughter chattered happily with her Vexari friends. She had no idea how close war had come, or how her innocent mistake had ultimately created something unprecedented in human history. "Commander," Paul Garcia called from across the room. "Earth Command is on the line. They want an update on the medical exchange program." As Alan headed toward the communication station, he passed a window overlooking the sacred grove. The purple trees were in full bloom, their fruit growing abundantly. But now, instead of being reserved only for the religious elite, the fruit was being carefully harvested and combined with the human treatment to heal Vexari across the planet. In the center of the grove stood a new monument, a simple stone carving of a human hand and a Vexari claw reaching toward each other. The inscription, written in both languages, read, "Because we shared our food, we offered each other tomorrow." Alan smiled. Sometimes the most profound connections began with the simplest mistakes, and sometimes offering yourself for someone you love could change the destiny of entire worlds.